I'm author Brendan Greeley. Stay tuned. Taped with Rabbi Doug is next.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight.
But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're gonna watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug. Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about Doug.
So welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. So glad you could be with us today. I am so happy to have on my old friend Brendan Greeley. Welcome to the show, Brendan.
Hey, Rabbi Doug, thanks for having me.
This is so cool.
It's a blast.
So you may know Brendan from the Steve Dahl Show. You may know him from the radio show, from the podcast, and he was Steve's producer and sidekick, and he has just released his first book. It's called Secret Pizza, a Midwestern Fairytale by Brendan Greeley. And Brendan is not only the voice of Brendan Greeley, but he's also the author of Brendan Greeley.
That's right.
You've written a fairy tale. You've written a story, which is the length of a novel, and I have to ask you before we go into everything else about your life and your background. What brought you to write a fairy tale, to write this long story and put it into a book?
It's a great question because you know the common elements of a fairy tale. There's something mystical. There's goblins or princesses and what have you. And I came to think, man, the Midwest really needs its own type of, we've got our own magic here, but the things that we hold dear are things like pizza. You bring up pizza among, you start a conversation about pizza. Everybody has their favorite place, right?
Sure.
Everybody has their spot that they recommend over, and they'll fight for it.
And even in the world of kosher pizza, for us, there's people's favorite places too. So that they're a little bit smaller choices, but they're favorite places too.
Exactly, right.
And favorite types of pizza. Yeah. Favorite types of pizza and stuff like that. Yeah. So have you always been a pizza connoisseur, which kind of brought you to this?
Absolutely. I mean, from the time I was a kid, I grew up in the Grange area, Western Springs.
I want you to know, I want to tell you, my father grew up in the LaGrange area.
Really?
He did. Well, he grew up on the west side, and then when they moved from the west side, they lived in LaGrange.
Okay.
So yeah.
Why not? Lyons Township High School. That's excellent.
Cool. Very cool. I think that's where my father went to Austin High School.
Okay.
But I think that his brothers went to Lyons Township.
You know who else used to live there? Groucho Marx.
Groucho Marx.
All the Marx brothers lived out in the
Yeah, well,
countryside.
so just going back into our background, the Jewish community, which was really based on the west side until the 1950s, 1960s, and then it kind of all moved away.
Yeah.
Many of those people moved to LaGrange, Westchester, Maywood, and what's the other town there?
Lyons.
And Lyons, thank you, and Lyons. So they all moved out that way, just kind of moved west.
Sure.
And there you go.
Yeah, it's a great community, and with some great pizza places like Kashani's Pizzeria. That was a spot when I was young. Lito's Pizza, and those are the spots where we after a little league game we'd go there, we'd eat pizza. And it was kind of a magical thing,
And you had these things in mind when you were writing your book.
Exactly.
They were what you're thinking of.
Yeah,
well, I want to talk about you for a minute because then we'll go back to the book. So, Brendan Greeley was born on the south side of Chicago, raised in the Western Suburbs, graduated from Lyons Township High School in LaGrange, and went on to study English in the University of Iowa. From Iowa City, he moved to the north side of Chicago to take a job with CBS Radio as a news and comedy writer. Brendan is a prolific broadcaster, hosting and co-hosting multiple programs across various channels and mediums. Brendan published his first novel in 2022. When he's not attending sporting events, Brendan can be found walking his dog along the lakefront, checking out books at a nearby branch of the Chicago Public Library, or playing 16-inch softball.
Oh, yeah.
Upton Sinclair, Sam Smith, and Studs Terkel are a few of the many authors he admires.
Yeah, I think so.
And
So.
what is it that you enjoy doing most of all? Is being in broadcasting? Is writing? Is doing voiceovers, which you've done? What do you like doing most of all?
Voiceovers are fun. You get to really play with my voice a little bit. All right, here we go. So those are a blast. But I think, I really do love broadcasting. I love writing. And they're kind of two different sides of my personality, I guess. You can when you're sitting in with Steve, it's fun. You're just improvising and whatever comes to your mind. You're playing off of a comedy legend there, and you're just trying to keep pace. Whereas with when I'm writing, it's a little more like I'm really getting into the details and really in a calm sense. That's what I like to do on my days off. Get a cup of coffee and sit in the easy chair and just kind of write, and pick it up where I want to, and then if I don't feel like writing that day, then I pick up a book and read. So it's just kind of my relaxing, my happy place on that side. But the broadcasting, I guess, is more of the challenge and the
Sure.
Well,
you also do producing, so you do his production and stuff. So you're sitting during the day saying, okay, we should talk about this. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to get this together for him. I'm going to do this. Being a radio producer and being part of a show is kind of double duty. Double duty, because you have to have everything ready well in advance. Do you spend a lot of time on that production work and that pre-production work? Or is that like a little bit less than it used to be? How is that?
Yeah, probably less than it used to be, just because with the three of us on the Dahl Show, myself, Steve Dahl, obviously, and Doug Julin, legendary musician and terrific voice man himself.
Doug is a great guy.
Yeah, great character actor. So with the three of us, I guess we've been working together long enough at WLS and on the Steve Dahl Show that we kind of know what we're gonna bring to the table, and so it's just I'll pull up a few stories. Steve will pull up a few stories that we might use. Doug will have a few thoughts and stories that he brings to the table, and we just gotta throw it in the mixing bowl, see what comes out that day.
Do you enjoy the live broadcasts when you go and you do a radio show or a podcast live as much as you do sitting behind the table with your feet up on the table with a cup of coffee in your hand, and doing it just behind the scenes?
Man, you can't beat the commute when you're working at home, and because we connect via satellite these days, and we all have our own home studios. But there's really nothing like the live broadcast. We get to
interact.
Yeah, we're often at Zany's in Rosemont, and having a live audience there brings that extra energy and get to interact. And sometimes when you're doing a forum like TV or radio, and you're talking to the camera, and you're talking into the microphone, and theoretically there's people out there listening or watching, but you don't get to see them.
Sure.
So it helps to to actually see that, there are people listening, there are people watching. They're coming out to watch.
It's real. It's real.
Exactly.
So I want to go back into the book, Secret Pizza, a Midwestern Fairytale.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit of a summary of the book, why it's interesting to the reader, and what you added to it to make it special besides just a story and turn it into a fairy tale.
Absolutely. Well, it's as I mentioned, as we talked about, that people really love their hometown pizza, their neighborhood places, and it's the story begins with neighborhood pizzerias are mysteriously closing down, shutting down. And
it's not a pandemic.
Exactly. There's nothing too worldwide going on, but there's something mysterious happening. And so these three college freshmen Evan, Anna, and Crust, his nickname is Crust, they've got to team together and figure out these clues and these riddles and follow a path, follow a little mysterious trail that they find, and at the end of it, I mean, hopefully they can save the day and save all their neighborhood pizzerias from being shut down.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
it's about protecting your neighborhood, Bob.
So what are your what's the word, mystical things that bring it into the fairy tale realm? What are some of those little things that people would be excited to look for?
Absolutely. It's Evan. Evan is one of the main characters, and he has this kind of supernatural ability he has these dreams that he doesn't really know. When he's a young kid, he's not really sure what they are, what they mean, but every time he eats good pizza and shares it with his friends or family, he has these really vivid, lucid dreams, and he's not really sure what to make of it at first, but then as he finally gets to his freshman year at college at the University of Iowa, he meets a guru that kind of guides him, that knows what his super talent is, and he's able to guide him through the process. Right. And then as the story unfolds, there are some mystical things that the characters and their friends encounter that make it quite the adventure.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, you're the author of Brendan Greeley. You're kind of one of the characters in the book. How much of yourself is in this book and the characters? How much do you like saying, if this character is me, I would be doing this or that? How much, is that a lot?
Oh, sure. I mean, they say, every character has a little bit of you in it, much like your dreams. They say every person that you dream about, it's a little bit of you, it's a little bit of your personality being reflected back at you. And certainly when you're writing a character, there's going to be, a lot of yourself in it. So within the story, one of the main characters, Crust, is also the narrator, and it might mention that he has a deep voice and a bit of a quirky sense of humor. So I guess if I had to choose one of the characters, that would be most likely it's the character named Crust.
Right.
And, like pizza crust. His name is Crust.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
So when it comes to writing books, and people come out with their first book, they have other thoughts in their mind of saying, I should also write a book about this, or I could write a book about this or that. Did you ever think of, because now that you're a successful writer, you publish, did you ever think of doing something like I want to go to our friend we talked about before the show, Rick Kempfer, who publishes books and writes. One of his first books was the Radio Producer's Handbook.
Right.
Did you ever think of writing about the Steve Dahl Show and an autobiography of being part of it, or maybe part of being part of radio in Chicago or something? Have you ever thought about doing something more serious in your writing rather than something like a fairy tale and fiction? Yeah,
I mean, I guess every aspect of everything that you go through that is interesting is like, well, it's a story to be told. So as far as I've asked Steve in the past, like, would you ever want to write a story about yourself? Would you ever want to write it? And he's like, you know what, I tell my story every day on the show. That's my biography. And so it's there. It's something maybe I would think about in the future. When I'm looking back on all of it as kind of what an interesting like journey it was through radio and stuff. But I guess right now I'm still going through it, so I'll take time to reflect on it someday.
So when I've been with Steve Dahl in the past and interviewed him in the past, I never bring up this question, but I'm going to ask you.
All right.
Do you ever say, Steve, maybe we should invite Gary on the show and do this show and make it big and make the headlines and sales and whatever, and maybe do a radio special on the radio or a TV special or something? I mean, it'd be big money, it'd be big advertisers.
Yeah.
Does that ever run through his mind? Do you guys ever talk about that?
Every once in a while, somebody will call in or write in, and they'll ask about Steve and Gary. Obviously, they were, they were
That's how everybody knows me, because I was on the Steve and Gary show for so many years.
There you go, exactly. I mean, they were the major influencers in Chicago of the 80s and 90s and beyond. And so it was, I think it's open.
There's still the Online Appreciation Society where there's posts every day about Steve and Gary and stuff. Is it something that he thinks about? Because Gary and I have talked about it, and Gary said, if they really ask, I might consider it. He's not living in Chicago now. He's doing his podcast with Chicago. It's also kind of like you do when Steve's in Florida over satellite and stuff. So, but I know it's not like on the top of his mind, but if the right amount of money and the right amount of publicity went with it, it's not something that I think that he'd be against if it was. Like there was that one reunion at the beach.
Sure.
North Avenue Beach or Oak Street Beach, whatever it's right there.
Yeah,
that was pretty special.
Yeah, it was front page of the Sun-Times the next day. Yeah, it was. I think Steve would be open-minded about it for sure. I mean, he's got. He always says he holds no ill will towards Gary at all. So I think it's. The door is open for something like that to happen if both parties were cool with it, and it would be huge. It would be a blast for the city of Chicago and all the fans.
So I'm still in touch regularly with Janet also.
Yeah.
We became friendly over the years.
Janet's the best.
She's great. She's great.
She's
are you in touch with the kids? Do you see the kids? Do you see the grandkids when you guys do the shows?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mike and Matt and Pat are they're my boys. We're in our fantasy football league right now. I did not fare so well this year, but I think Mike made the championship. I'm good buddies with.
Is Mike still doing the radio thing?
So Mike and Pat are working with Banner Collective, Banner Studios, and they do they do amazing video work for the Blackhawks, some for the Cubs, Vienna Beef, Pop-Tarts, like they do. They're fantastically talented video producers. And Matt is a firefighter in Mount Pleasant.
I know Matt's a firefighter. That I knew. Yeah.
So Matt and I, of course, did our podcast and
I know you guys used to have that show together.
We have so much fun.
So and I knew Mike was in media, and I didn't realize Pat was doing that with him.
Yeah.
They're doing the video media together.
Yeah, they're a good team, and they're doing amazing things.
And do you guys still sometimes do that show together?
He's just. He's not only a firefighter, he's also an EMT. Lately we haven't had time to do it, but that's still a possibility.
Those are fun shows.
Yeah. I mean, Matt and I get together, just to maybe have a beer or something. Right. It's like we're doing a show because we just hit the ground running because we always had a lot of fun on the air together and off the air together. So I'm sure we'll pick it up again soon at some point. And actually some of the grandkids, some of Steve's grandkids, like Jackson Dahl, Matt's son he's got a knack for. He comes on the show every once in a while with his grandpa, and he I tell you, some of those kids are going to be the future of broadcasting.
Very nice. I do get to listen now and then. So tell me, what has Brendan got in mind for future writing? Because if this book takes off, which we hope it will, which is why you're here today, you guys definitely want to check out this book.
This guy speaks the truth. Rabbi Doug, he knows.
What have you thought about doing for a second story, a second novel, a second fantasy? I actually had a girl who was like a big writer in college and stuff on, and she wrote her first fantasy novel. It was like dragons and the whole fantasy thing.
Yeah.
Came out. The book is a tremendous. Great book, and she's doing very well with it and stuff.
Sweet.
It's her first. She didn't do anything in media before that.
Awesome.
But she did it. You are already in media, so you have a little step ahead of her with this. What are you thinking about for another book? Do you have other stories in your mind? As we talked about before the show went on, this story has run through your mind for years until you put it together and made it into a fantasy and a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Did you have other stories and other things in your mind that you love to put together and make into a fantasy or a fiction novel?
Yeah, without question. I've got there are a bunch of stories, maybe some other Midwestern fairy tales that I'd like to do, and there are some stories I'm wondering. I guess I want to see how well this one does first, and so far so good. But and then if I want to continue down the path of more fairy tales or write some, there are also some grittier stories, I guess, that are in my mind. But I want to stay true to whatever audience I build. So I guess it'll be a little bit of a wait and see. But,
So
like with this one, as you mentioned, I was like, I had this story of secret pizza in my mind since my Iowa days.
So, because this isn't radio, it isn't producing, it isn't broadcasting, it's a different part of media. It's your first book. How do you get going on a book? Like, do you find someone to proofread for you? How long does it take to really, when you start saying, I'm going to write, do you start writing by hand? Do you start on the computer? What were your first, impressions and methods to get going, starting writing a book for the first time?
Yeah, back in the day, I used to, when I'd write something, I'd write it out first by hand and then I'd type it, but now I've moved on to just going straight to the computer, and I was fortunate. It took me about a year, I guess, all from first time I hit the keyboard until I published it. So it was a process, of then going back and eliminating some stuff, changing some stuff, and really trying to edit it down. And I was very fortunate to have an editor. Mike Leonard is the editor on this book. He's a South Sider and a cousin of mine, and he now lives in Vermont. But so I would send him copies, updates, and he would read it over and just kind of let me bounce some ideas off him and have some thoughts and edits and whatnot.
That's great that you had someone like that. That's great.
And then also my sister Bridget Roble is she's just got a very sharp mind for details, and especially she just like the proper wording and grammar and stuff. So she gave it a big read through, and that just gave me a lot of confidence to say, okay, I didn't misuse this word, or I didn't, my punctuation here is acceptable, because when you really dig into the English language, it can be like it can mess with your mind a little bit. Like, oh wait, do I put the comma here, or I put the comma there? So that's a nice safety net to have for sure.
Cool. So tell me about University of Iowa for a minute, because that's where you went to school. Were you in broadcasting there? Were you in media there? Were you in film? What was your major, and how did it lead to working at CBS?
Yeah, I was an English major at the University of Iowa, and they have a spectacular writing program there, the Iowa Writers Workshop. Now you need a certain GPA to be officially in the Iowa Writers Workshop, which at the time I wasn't maybe the most studious during all my time at University of Iowa. I was up late ordering pizza, but nevertheless I got to take classes there at the Iowa Writers Workshop, and that was, you got to learn from some really terrific writers and amazing teachers there, and be amongst other writers and creative people. So that was my focus there, and definitely gave me a lot to move.
So I want to go back and go deeper in this question, because a lot of people get into radio is there's an internship open, and they come in and they work while they're in school, or maybe right after school in this internship, and then they get a small job at the radio station, and then they end up, maybe somebody they were working for brings them into their team, and they end up working with them. You came in as a writer at CBS, as how you put it in your biography.
That's how I put
it. What were your steps into getting in there?
Well, truthfully, it was, I got out of school and I was like, I'm an English major, what am I gonna do? I didn't want to be a teacher, and there's only so many things I guess you could do with an English degree. And a friend of mine, her mom was friends with Janet Dahl, and she knew I had this kind of quirky voice, or interesting voice. It's like, well, would you ever be interested in an internship at a radio station? It's like, yeah. So I left a message for Steve. He heard my weird voice. He called me back. He's like, you don't have to use that fake radio voice. You could be an intern here for me. So yeah. So
you went in through the internship. That was your first step into the radio.
That was my first.
Wow,
yeah,
and that's even without going to Columbia or any of those broadcasting programs.
Yeah, nothing like that. So I was a gopher and kind of just filling in, doing what I could, assisting wherever I could for a while.
Went into production, went into
phones, and and then just kind of worked my way up, and now I got a seat at the big table with Steve. So
how cool.
Yeah.
Have you had any thoughts about television? Going into television, going into like Disney voiceover or something like that as far as animation. Are those things on the back of your mind, or things you've been approached about in the past?
I mean, certainly something I'd keep an open mind to. If Disney wanted me to do a voice of a singing lobster or something, I'd be happy to. Oh yeah, that'd be great. But I've done some local TV,
commercials.
Local stuff. So I mean, it's definitely something I'm open to. Not focused on necessarily at the moment, but possibilities are.
You have your doors are still open for a future.
Hey, absolutely.
Very nice.
We'll see where everything takes.
No, listen. You could become a wealthy author and not even be doing anything else but writing all the time, like some authors are.
That wouldn't be bad.
I'll tell you a story. My friend David Steinberg from Chicago. He went in and started working in animation. He's an amazing artist and writer. Cool. He went in animation. He was doing movies, a lot of famous movies, by the way, including All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Oh, sure.
And American Tail. So David's now, I believe now he's with Nickelodeon now. But anyway, his stepping stone was there and grew and grew. Yeah. And he was with Disney for years and years and years. Did a whole bunch of Disney movies. I think Aladdin was one of his movies, maybe. I can't even remember all of them. I remember when I had him on the show, I remember that YouTube, where I published my show on the internet, besides my website, they banned the show because I had too many clips. They banned the show after being on for a year or two on there. They finally banned it because I had too many clips of movies that he worked in and stuff like that. Yeah. But just an interesting thing. They're a little more lenient now because they'll do commercials for those things, which they didn't do back in the day and stuff. But this is great. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Brendan.
Hey,
Brendan Greeley from the Steve Dahl Show, and he is the author of Secret Pizza, a Midwestern Fairytale. Remember, we want to thank all of you for being with us. You can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, where you can also see former shows on the web. If you want to send Brendan an email or know more about his book or more about what he does, info@tvrabbi.com. Send this email to me. I'll forward it to him. He'll get back to you personally, and we look forward to having you on the show again sometime real soon.
Anytime, Reverend.
The amazing voice and amazing author, Brendan Greeley. Hope to see you all next time right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom.
Talking about Rabbi Doug on your TV show, where he's the rabbi for me. Anytime you need, you're gonna get married or you're gonna die. Gonna see Rabbi Doug.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.